Health experts have warned against complacency as COVID infections in Hong Kong experience a renewed surge. Members of a delegation who traveled to the Middle East with Chief Executive John Lee have hailed the success of the trip, which lured potential investments into Hong Kong and the mainland. And ratings agency Moody's downgrades the credit ranking for the United States over concerns of debt default. Good evening, you're watching Cable News. I'm Quentin Yang. COVID-19 cases in Hong Kong have seen a sharp rise over the past 4 weeks, with the virus claiming 30 lives during that period. Health experts are urging parents to get their children vaccinated to prevent severe symptoms, as the rate of infection is much higher among children. Evelyn Bai reports.
The Center for Health Protection reported 5 severe cases of COVID-19 among children so far this year. Pediatrician Mike Kwan, who is an honorary associate professor at the University of Hong Kong, estimates the actual number to be higher. Taking to the airwaves, Kwan said the children involved in these cases were not only admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit for treatment, but also required immunoglobulin therapy to prevent life-threatening risks. After recovering from the infection, children might develop high fevers again within 2 to 6 weeks, alongside other symptoms like rashes and swelling. Therefore, parents are advised to closely monitor these signs, Kwan added. Data provided by the CHP revealed that 30 deaths were recorded over the past 4 weeks among 81 severely infected adults. However, Lau Yulong, chairman of the government's Scientific Committee on Vaccine-Preventable Diseases, said severe cases and fatalities remained lower compared to the same period last year. But the physician warned that most Hong Kongers have lost immunity against COVID and cannot produce antibodies against variant strains. He urged the elderly and individuals with underlying illnesses to take a booster dose of the COVID-19 vaccine and maintain stringent personal and environmental hygiene at all times. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
Hong Kong business representatives who accompanied Chief Executive John Lee on his trip to the Middle East highlighted that sovereign wealth funds from the region were keen to invest in SAR and mainland enterprises. The SAR's collaboration with Kuwait and Qatar has opened new avenues for mainland firms to expand in the Middle East. Jeremy Zhu reports.
59 agreements were signed during Chief Executive John Lee's recent visit to the Middle East. The city's leader led a high-level delegation comprising of government officials and business leaders from the mainland and Hong Kong. In a newspaper interview, Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong, who accompanied Lee, said the visit was highly productive and further strengthened ties between the SAR, mainland, and the Middle East, opening new investment opportunities with Qatar and Kuwait. Lawmaker Sunny Tan, who was part of the delegation and is also the chairman of the Hong Kong Productivity Council, noted that investors from the Middle East showed a strong interest in innovation and technology firms, especially those with a proven international track record. Tan explained that mainland companies wishing to expand overseas often face challenges due to differences in legal systems. However, Hong Kong as a super connector and backed by its common law framework can help them adapt to global standards. Speaking on the same program, lawmaker Johnny Ng added that major funds typically seek large-scale projects. If Hong Kong went alone, these funds might not be as interested. But by partnering with the mainland, we create more opportunities, he said. Ng also welcomed the new visa-free arrangements between Hong Kong, Qatar, and Kuwait, replacing previous visa-on-arrival policies, which he believes will boost business ties. Meanwhile, Law Society President Chong Man Long said many Middle Eastern lawyers expressed interest in registering in Hong Kong during the visit. Some local firms have already set up branches in Kuwait, highlighting growing legal opportunities in the region. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Students from Kurita's Twin Moon Martin Foundation Secondary School backed this year's championship at the 17th Hong Kong Cup Diplomatic Knowledge Contest. Chief Executive John Lee held the 10th quiz contest and encouraged youngsters to enhance their knowledge of the nation's foreign policy and develop a global perspective. More than 78,000 students from over 280 primary and secondary schools took part in the contest. In the final round today, 5 secondary schools competed through a series of rapid-fire and situational questions. Cui Jianchun, Commissioner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hong Kong and Deputy Chairman of the Jockey Club, Martin Liao, also attended the event and presented awards to the winners.
点出了要认识、了解和感知外交。
Addressing the awarding ceremony, Lee noted that many young Hong Kongers are taking more interest in the country's diplomatic affairs. He also highlighted his recent visit to Qatar and Kuwait as a perfect example of how diplomacy works. Transport Secretary Mabel Chang confirmed that operators of the newly licensed 5 taxi fleets are actively getting ready for launch of service by late July. The minister also reiterated the government's commitment to regulate online ride-hailing platforms and avoid its friction with the city's taxi industry. Jeremy Zhu has more details.
Despite getting approval last year, only 2 of the 5 newly licensed taxi fleets, comprising of around 300 vehicles, are currently in trial operation. Under current rules, fleets must deploy at least 60% of their pledged taxi numbers upon launch. Taking to the airwaves, Chan said the 60% requirement was agreed with the industry, calling it premature to discuss relaxations. She acknowledged varying challenges among fleets, from procuring vehicles to hiring drivers, but stressed operators are refining services based on passenger feedback ahead of July's full rollout. The government also plans to offer fleets operational flexibility through legal and administrative measures, including dedicated pickup zones at border checkpoints and shopping centers. Additionally, as taxi and ride-hailing platform representatives met with the government yesterday, Chan emphasized that platform regulation and taxi industry reform must be addressed together to better provide satisfactory services to the public. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Representatives from Russia and Ukraine held their first face-to-face talks since war erupted between the two nations over 3 years ago. The meeting in the Turkish city of Istanbul was a small step forward, but was far away from providing a much-needed breakthrough to stop the conflict. Although symbolically significant, the negotiations were undermined by the absence of Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. During the talks, which lasted less than 2 hours, the Russian delegation, led by presidential aide Vladimir Medinsky, demanded Ukraine to withdraw its troops from large parts of its own territory in exchange for a ceasefire. Kyiv's delegation, led by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, denied any territorial concessions as non-negotiable, reaffirming Ukraine's stance. However, there was a bright side to the otherwise inconclusive talks, as both sides agreed to swap 1,000 prisoners. Both sides also agreed to draft ceasefire proposals for the future, though mutual distrust remains high. Meanwhile, Zelensky, who was attending the European Political Community Summit in Albania, rallied Western leaders to threaten stricter sanctions unless Russia accepts an unconditional ceasefire. U.S. President Donald Trump, who has positioned himself as a mediator, stated he would quickly arrange a meeting with Putin, claiming the Russian leader is tired of the war and open to negotiations. The Kremlin, however, denied immediate plans for the summit, stressing any dialogue requires substantive preparation. Credit rating firm Moodys has downgraded its ranking for the United States, expressing concern over the government's ability to pay back its debt. The lower credit rating could mean that the U.S. is likely to default on its sovereign debt and generally face higher borrowing costs. Evelyn Bai reports.
Lowering the U.S. rating from AAA to AA1, Moodys highlighted that successive governments have failed to tackle the ballooning U.S. national debt and deficits. A AAA rating awarded to any country signifies that the nation is financially stable and has good credit reliability. However, the renowned ratings agency maintained its confidence in the US dollar as the global reserve currency. In a statement, the White House said it was focused on fixing the financial mess left by outgoing President Joe Biden and blamed Moodys for staying silent as the fiscal disaster unfolded over the last 4 years. The U.S. economy shrank in the first 3 months of the year after government spending dropped and imports surged, as businesses scrambled to get goods in the country before President Donald Trump imposed tariffs on America's trading partners. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
After concluding his trip to the Middle East, U.S. President Donald Trump has said he will look into the situation in the Gaza Strip, where more than 300 people have died in the past 3 days, as Israel escalated its offensive against the Palestinian group Hamas.
We're going to handle a couple of situations that you have here. We have some very serious situations, and we're looking at Gaza, and we got to get that taken care of. A lot of people are starving. There's a lot of bad things going on.
An alleged Israeli blockade of aid, which started 10 weeks earlier, has led to severe shortages of essential supplies in Gaza. According to aid agencies, more Palestinians are dying of starvation. There are mounting warnings from the United Nations that the enclave is on the brink of famine. Israeli officials have consistently denied the blockade and blamed Hamas for the suffering of the Palestinian people. The Israeli government insists there is no shortage of food in Gaza and that the real crisis is Hamas looting and selling aid. Nearly 300 people have died after Israel bombed several locations in Gaza Strip over the past 3 days. In the NBA, the New York Knicks knocked out defending champions, the Boston Celtics, with a 4-2 win in their best-of-7 series and booked their spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. Playing away at Madison Square Garden without star forward Jason Tatum, the Celtics had a tough task on hand and their outing got more stressful, thanks to a raucous New York crowd. Despite the struggle, Boston managed to hold on as the Knicks took a slim 6-point lead in the first quarter.
Brown doing everything he can. Number 7 trying to force a Game 7.
Fixing their defensive woes and backing them up with some good offense, New York dominated the second quarter, piling up 38 points, while the Celtics could only score 17.
Timeouts.
Any chances for Boston to make a comeback were shut out after the break, as New York took a massive 28-point lead in the third quarter. Boston committed defensive lapses, which resulted in 16 turnovers, and the Knicks cashed out, scoring 22 points off those turnovers. It was game over for the Celtics in the fourth quarter as Jalen Brunson rained more misery on Boston. With a blowout 119-81 victory, New York reached the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. They will host the Indiana Pacers in Game 1 of their best-of-7 series, which begins next Thursday. World number 1 Jannik Sinner set up a blockbuster final against Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz by fighting back to beat American Tommy Paul in the Italian Open. Paul silenced the home crowd in Rome as Sinner struggled to find his footing. Playing his first tournament since serving a 3-month doping suspension, reigning Australian Open champion Sinner got off to a shaky start, as ball blitzed through the opener, dropping just 1 game. However, the 23-year-old Italian did not disappoint his home fans and snatched an early 3-0 lead in the second set. Extending that lead, Sinner secured 3 more games and leveled the tie to force a decider. Sinner completed the turnaround in 1 hour and 44 minutes and punched his ticket into the final with a 1-6, 6-love, 6-3 win. His title clash against Alcaraz tomorrow is the perfect rehearsal for the French Open, which starts in Paris next Sunday. Onto the weather now. Mainly cloudy with a few showers. Hot during the day with a maximum temperature of 31 degrees. Expect similar situations in the following couple of days. And that's our news tonight. I'm Quentin Yang. Thank you for watching. Good night.